Click the bell icon to get latest videos from Ekeeda.
Hello friends, today we are going to discuss about a multiprocessor system of a computer system architecture. What are their advantages, what are the types of multiprocessor system, and how we can choose between the types of the multiprocessor system and recent traits in the multiprocessor system. Nowadays, multiprocessor systems are demanding many more and more users to get accommodated. In this multiprocessor system, two or more processors is in a close communication with the shared bus and sometimes sharing the clock, the memory and the peripheral devices. First, the memory and multiprocessor system developed into the servers. Then they came into the mainframe and mini-frame computers such as desktop and laptop. Now they are moving into the mobile computing services such as smartphones and tablet computers. This multiprocessor system has some advantages. The first one is the increased throughput. By increasing the number of processors in a system, we can expect more work done in a lesser time. But the speed up ratio is not n, basically it is less than n. The overhead of working all the processors correctly with the contention for the shared memory actually lowered the expectation of the increased throughput, but in generally it increases the throughput. As well as the simultaneously n programmers, the individual programmer running cannot input the directly involving increased throughput. Next one is the economy of scale. Definitely, a multiprocessor system can significantly cost lesser amount of costing than a single multiple processor systems. These multiprocessor systems allows us to share the memory, the peripheral devices, mass storage and the power supplies. Thus, this reduces the cost. If all the processors uses the same data, then it is better to store that data in a single disk rather than storing it in different computers with some local storage, and obviously with many copies of that data. If the functions and programs are divided properly among the processors of data, then it can reduce the failure of the operating system altogether. Suppose there are 10 processors in an operating system, one fails, then the other 9 remaining processors can pick up the share of the failure system work and thus making the system only 10% slower, altogether failing the system, but halting it together. Increased reliability is a crucial importance to a computer system. Some system provided services proportional to the level of the surviving hardware is known as graceful degradation. And some of the processor goes beyond this graceful degradation known as fault tolerance as they provide service for becoming failure too. Now the fault tolerance requires a mechanism to detect, diagnose and possibly correct the errors. HP non-stop system and many other systems uses hardware and software duplications to ensure continuing service despite these failures. This system uses a lockstep mechanism of multiple pairs of CPU working together. Suppose an instruction is executed on a pair of CPU and the results are compared. If the results are differed, then one CPU in that pair is at fault. Both the CPU is halted and the instruction now performed in another pair of CPU and the instruction set that were failed is restarted. This way, this solution can become more expensive as it requires special hardware and hardware reusability too. The multiprocessor system we use today are of two different types. Number one is asymmetric multiprocessing, in which each processor uses a specified predefined task. There is one master processor who used to allocate and schedule all the works for the other processors known as slave processors. Either they have to look for the master processor or they have some predefined task. This task can be accomplished by the slave processors in an asymmetric multiprocessing system. In some other end, there is a symmetric multiprocessing system where all processors can do all instruction operation within an operating system. Here, all the processors are peers and no master-slave relationship exists. Here in this model, the provides information about n processors can run simultaneously if there are n CPU. This speed up the ratio of an increased throughput. However, we must ensure to carefully control the I/O devices that the data reaches the proper register, appropriate register, and the data must be contained within that register too. And the CPUs are separate, so one CPU can sit idle while the other being overloaded. These inefficiencies can be avoided if the all processors can reduce to a data structure which they are following. This data structure and the multiprocessor system can fall and lower the variance among the processors by lowering the shared resources such as memory, network, and all the shared access between the processors. The difference between symmetric and asymmetric processing can result from hardware and from software too. A special type of hardware can differentiate among different multiple single processors, and a special type of software can allow to write only one master processors and single several processors. A recent trend in CPU design in a multiprocessor system is to include multiple computing cores in a single chip known as a multi-core. Now this multiple computing cores in a single chip is faster because on-chip communication obviously is faster and inexpensive than between-chip communication. Now in a multiple computing core in a single chip is lesser amount of taking advantage because one chip with multiple cores, computing cores, can take less significantly power backup too from a multiple cores including in a single chip. Another recent development in the multiple processor system is a blade server, where multiple processor I/O board and processor board and networking board are placed in the same chassis. The main difference between these blade servers and traditional multiprocessor system is that in blade server, all the processor boards can run autonomously and its own operating system. This operating system can also include multiprocessor system, which blurs the line between the types of computers. This is all for the multiprocessor system. Thank you for watching this video. Stay tuned with Ekeeda and subscribe to Ekeeda.